The Seahawks are Super Bowl champions. And in a show befitting the occasion, ESPN's Mina and The Ringer's Danny Kelly are here to discuss their favorite themes and moments from not only Super Bowl 60, but an incredible season overall. Let's light them up.
I'm Jacson Bevins, and this is Cigar Thoughts.
Welcome back to the Cigar Lounge. I am Jacson Bevins, and along with my euphoric producer, Mike Barwin, this is the Cigar Thoughts podcast. And for the first time in the history of the show, the Seahawks are world champs. So I got the group chat together to celebrate. And while y'all take a moment to bask in what we experienced this season, cigars and whiskey. Cigar Thoughts is proud to be partnered with Seattle Cigar Concierge and Balvenie Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Seattle Cigar Concierge and I have teamed up to release 2 versions of high-quality Cigar Thoughts stogies, both of which you can purchase by following the link on the show page or by visiting cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Mike and I love doing the show, and there are 2 ways y'all listening and watching can help support it so that we can keep the episodes coming. One is by purchasing the cigars, and the other is by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts, where you can watch full episodes, as well as the funny and insightful clips that Mike puts together. Give a thumbs up to the stuff you like, and let us know what you think in the comments. And of course, you can listen to us everywhere you get your podcasts. Look, you've heard me say it before, and that's because it's true, but the coolest thing about my Cigar Thoughts experience is the relationships it's helped create with some of the people I respect and admire the most in the business of covering the NFL. And in some very special instances, it's created friendships for which I'm extremely grateful. That's why, on the first ever Cigar Thoughts show where the Seahawks are Super Bowl champs, we got the group chat together. There are a few things over the last 15 years or so of writing and talking about this team that I'm more thankful for than the friendships I have with Mina and Danny, and I couldn't be more thrilled that they're both going to join us to relive one of the truly great moments in Seattle sports history. My first guest needs no introduction, but she certainly deserves one. She is as good as it gets at what she does and has somehow made the time to join us in between being an analyst for NFL Live on ESPN, hosting one of the best football podcasts on the planet, crushing the Great American Baking Show, and recapping the Super Bowl at Disneyland. She is the inimitable Mina Kimes. Mina, good morning.
Hi. I'm sorry. I'm happy that Danny's joining you, but sorry to not be there with him.
I know.
Good chats and pieces. But no, I'm thrilled to kind of take a moment with you to relive this because, you know, I've been doing it on my show on NFL Live. I was on TV at Disneyland yesterday, but I think it's still kind of sinking in.
Yeah, and you know, it's like sometimes we get so deep in the forest that, you know, we forget what got us into this in the first place. I know it certainly can happen for me where it can almost be difficult to balance the fact that you really do love a team as well as the sport when you're talking about the sport all of the time. And the Seahawks have done the thing. They've done the whole point of this. You know, all of the things that we debate and argue about and analyze is all about having a chance to win the Super Bowl, which the Seahawks have done. And today feels very fitting because this season kind of kicked off with your live show where Danny and I joined you on stage in Seattle to preview a lot of things about this season. And here we are circling back. The Seahawks are world champions, and like I said, I'm so glad you're here for this moment. There is so much to be analyzed about the actual game, and you and Ben Solak did a fantastic job of that on your show immediately afterward. But today, we are basking and luxuriating. So I just want to give you the floor to tell us some of your favorite moments or experiences, not only from the Super Bowl, from a remarkable season overall.
Yeah, it's funny to revisit that show because we had Julian Love on, and I actually want to go back and kind of who had an interception in the Super Bowl, right? And he's such a great guy, but he was so confident about the defense. We were very high on the defense, and I think it was very obvious early on that the defense was going to be something special. And the offense went on a journey. It looked unbelievably explosive during the first half of the season, then struggled a bit in the second half of the year. But the offense got it done the postseason. The run game, I thought it was so cool that Kenneth Walker third was the Super Bowl MVP because I think you could really argue that if not for his rise, the sort of, I would say, I wouldn't say rise of the run game, but the ability of the run game to carry the offense at times this season was really, really significant. I think it's a big part of why Clint Kubiak is now the head coach of the Raiders. So it definitely was a journey. It wasn't like wire to wire dominance for Seattle in the way, even though the team, I think by the half point of the season, we realized had a pretty strong chance of making it to the Super Bowl and winning this thing, especially the landscape of the NFL kind of looking around. But if I had to pick one game that stands out in my mind as like something that's going to define the season for me, I would say it's actually the Niners game in Week 18. Just shutting down Kyle Shanahan's offense. Because the Niners defense was a shell of itself, and I think we can acknowledge that. But I think what people maybe have forgotten, and people forget a lot of things, the Niners offense was rolling. The Niners offense was much closer to health. The Niners offense was killing teams. It was
I think they averaged they were averaging like 41 points a game in the month leading up to that one.
Crazy. And this defense completely stonewalled them.
Yeah.
Multiple times. So I think, Super Bowl obviously finished in similar fashion with the defense, but that's one where I'm going to look back and think, because the Niners offense was, anyways. So that's why Mike McDonald was brought in, right? And mission accomplished. What a performance.
One thing that stood out to me about all the interviews, because after the game, we got the house cleaned up. We hosted the Super Bowl party. We're getting the house cleaned up, and I'm flipping back and forth between the channels. Whenever someone goes to a commercial, I'm flipping to a different channel so I can drink in all of these interviews and listen to the players and the coaches. And something really unique stood out about this. I was talking about this with Paulina this morning is, I love watching the moments after a championship, no matter who wins, and seeing how players and coaches enjoy and appreciate that moment that they've been killing themselves for their whole careers. And something really unique stood out to me about so many of the interviews with these players is they were clearly happy. There was joy there, but there was this feeling of expectation. Like, we did what we knew we were capable of doing. It was just like, and there was almost this sense of loss. That's probably too strong of a word, but multiple players and Mike McDonald talked about, it's going to be weird not seeing these guys this week. It's going to be weird not going to practice. We got to find ways to get together this offseason because I'm going to miss these guys. And it's so tempting to draw parallels to the last time the Seahawks won a Super Bowl. And there's certainly some spiritual similarities in terms of winning with defense and, ball control, but explosive offense. But personality-wise, it's so different. Yeah. And that's not to say that this team doesn't have strong personalities, but the individual personalities aren't the story the way that they were 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's very true. So the defense of the Legion of Boom era played in a way that was reminiscent, that sort of reflected some of the big personalities on that unit. Michael Bennett, Richard Sherman, some of the most outspoken guys in football. And this defense, to me, Ernest Jones, I would say, has kind of emerged as a real leader of that unit and has been fairly outspoken in defense of the team. But it's almost like the nature of the players reflects the way they play. And I think the greatest compliment you could pay this defense is at the end of the game when we were talking about who might be Super Bowl MVP. It was really impossible to pick just one player. Mm-hmm. Witherspoon would have been my pick of that group, and he does have a big personality, to be fair. But it was difficult to isolate a single performance. Ernest Jones, by the way, going back and watching some of the Patriots reps, he was unbelievable in this game. Witherspoon was flashier. Derek Hall, Nwosu obviously had his moments, but Jones in run defense was just ridiculous. And I think also just like on individual plays, the way they all played together, the way, Leonard Williams set up Derek Hall looping around, or was it Nwosu or Hall? I can't remember, that had the strip sack. Can't remember.
Seriously.
right? Like the way they would pressure, and then Josh Jobe rallied to tackle Eamon Wari chasing down May in the open field. The unit was so connected in their style of play. And I think that's really Mike Macdonald's biggest impact is it's not just one role. This guy does this guy is a shutdown corner, this guy is our best pass rusher. It's how everybody understands how their responsibilities can, one, shift from player to player, and they can be asked to do, one player can be asked to do the same thing another was asked to do in a previous game or series, but also an understanding on every given play, like, okay, this is my role in this particular pressure or this particular coverage, and I'm going to have to execute it to perfection.
Yeah, there was one thing after the championship games that, we were joking about via text is, I felt like I was watching two different chess matches in the AFC championship and the NFC championship. And in the AFC, it was like the two sides had nothing but pawns. And in the NFC, it was all queens and rooks, because whoever won that game was just going to take a piece advantage into the Super Bowl. And it was cool to see the Seahawks play like they had queens and rooks and knights on their defense. Players who can do a lot of different things, who can attack from a lot of different angles. And the Patriots, frankly, just didn't have those pieces at all.
Totally.
And there was no sense of we're going to play with our food or anything like that. At least from the defensive standpoint, Mike Macdonald has built the blueprint for the modern NFL defense for beating the offensive wonderkins, and yet he was still throwing pitches that we didn't see all season. And that to me felt really special.
Yeah, I love that comparison of like the versatility of the Seahawks defense and the lack of players on New England's offense who, when they're on the field, you're like, are we worried about this guy? Nwosu had a great quote after the game where he said, we're just worried about May. We knew if we could shut down May. He didn't say we were worried about May, but he said, like, this is the only player that we're really like game planning for in a way. And I thought that's what it looked like. They did not, the Seahawks had no respect for the Patriots run game. And it never once felt like there was a skill player that could give them trouble. Hollins on that one drive was it.
Yeah.
And it was I think just the talent discrepancy on that side of the ball was so stark. You'll contrast that with the Rams game. Look, Matthew Stafford was, a million times better than Drake May. And if you put him in the Super Bowl, probably would have been more successful, but I don't think they would have won. Because you go back to the Rams game, and the Seahawks they had to respect the Rams run game. A lot of Matthew Stafford's explosives in that game came when they would show a too high shell and then rotate a safety down. They did not have to do that, right? Like Puka Nacua, obviously, was a problem for them and someone they had to game plan for. The Rams offensive line. I went back and looked. Seattle had, I think, they had double-digit quick pressures against New England. They only had 2 against the Rams. Mm-hmm. Like the Rams were just a significantly better team, and again, similar to the last Seahawks Super Bowl. I think when we think about this season, the NFC Championship that year and this year were the 2 best teams in football.
Yeah, I mean, and we felt it. Since we're talking about the things that we're happiest about with this season and the Super Bowl, I am a man of my word. I have taken a season full of flack about doubting some of these offseason moves. And I always said, I will never be happier than if I am wrong about this. And I want to acknowledge how happy I am to have been wrong about the way this offseason played out, because I was skeptical about going from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold. And I'm not going to pretend like that wasn't honest or fair at the time. I was extremely critical about moving on from DK Metcalf. Now, that softened once I saw what he signed for in Pittsburgh and, who they were able to get with the draft compensation. But, it was also important to me to not lose the plot, which is wanting this team to be the best that they can be. And it didn't follow the blueprint that I had for it. And that doesn't matter. And I am so happy to have been wrong about that.
The thing that really when I look back at, because you and I have talked about Geno and his decline this season, and basically essentially the Seahawks selling at the right time, which is what they did. The other flip side of that, more so than Sam Darnold, I was apprehensive of the full-on bet on Clint Kubiak's offense. That, I think, is the thing where I'm like, ooh, I really underestimated what the coordinator changed. Not that I didn't shit on the hire or anything. And I was like, it made perfect sense to me to fire Ryan Grubb. I don't think anyone, I mean, poor guy, but like, I don't think anyone was like, whoa, no, whatever. But I think the thing I was skeptical of was that Clint Kubiak could come in and call his very run-heavy offense with this offensive line based on what we saw last year. And I think, Jacson, like, that might be the thing that I underestimated the most about this team, was how the offensive line would come together under Kubiak. Obviously, they invested in it. You spent your first-round draft pick on a guard. You got a healthy season out of Abe Lucas, which, like everyone talks about the skill players and, JSNZ or whatever. You could argue that Abe Lucas playing an entire healthy season, the Seahawks are not in the Super Bowl unless that happens, right? Think about how many times they ran to that side of the offensive line successfully, including in this game. So, but I think that's the thing that really came together for this team that really surprised me the most, was the combination of Kubiak and the offensive line. And the run game wasn't actually good for a lot of this year, but
it was actually really bad.
Actually not good, yeah, right?
Till like Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but then they figured it out at the right time, and it's arguably why they won the Super Bowl. I mean, literally, the running back was the MVP of this game.
Yeah.
So I think Kubiak deserves a ton of credit for figuring that out as the season went along, sticking with it. And I think his willingness to stick with it helped this offensive line grow and develop as well. It was huge.
You're right. And it provided a safety net for the quarterback on the days that he needed it. And Sam Darnold, like I said, immediately after the NFC Championship game, I'm never going to say a bad word about that man. He's earned. He's in the pantheon. He won a Super Bowl as the quarterback of the Seahawks, and there were games that he was electric and exceptional and won the game. The NFC Championship game standing out above all. But this wasn't the best game that he had ever played. He was struggling. He was dealing with pressure. He very easily could have had 2 or 3 picks in the first half, and maybe you have a very different looking second half if that's the case. But he never rattled. And I think so much of that has to do not only with his grit, but with knowing that, okay, I don't have to go out and have the game that I did against Los Angeles for us to win. We can run this football and win. Yeah. And he was the safety net for the run game when it wasn't working. And he was number 1 in QBR through the first 8 games of the season. It was the Kubiak offense really created a system where they weren't forced into only winning one way, because styles make fights, and sometimes defenses are able to take away that one thing that you want to do. To be able to win with your second pitch or your third pitch is so valuable at this level, and Kubiak did that.
Absolutely. And the thing I'll say about him in the Super Bowl, Sam, is, look, he had some misses for sure. There were some throws that he probably wants back. And, Christian Gonzalez is really great. A lot of those passes defense were throws that were a little behind.
That's
so, right. But as sometimes with quarterback play, avoiding negative plays is as important as making explosive ones, and was, again, the difference between the quarterbacks in this game. The Patriots defense was relentless. Like they were so talking good. A lot of the last 48 hours about how awful New England's offensive line and protection plan was, and how Seattle exploited this. But Seattle's offensive line gave up some pretty significant quick pressures in this game. Milton Williams was like 4 inches away from decapitating Sam on a few plays. Yep. But his ability to avoid sacks was massive in this game.
Yes.
I mean, they pressured him over 40% of the time, and he took 1 sack all game long. And even if, it's funny, you think about the one where he avoided pressure and almost hit JSN, who would have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
And like there, he like it wasn't like he avoided pressure and made crazy plays in this, but he checked it down a few times. He kept the offense running on time, huge, and then he didn't take negative plays. Forget sacks; he didn't turn the ball over the entire postseason. So that sounds like damning with faint praise, like, "Oh, good job, you didn't turn it over." But again, like to your point, when you have a defense this good and the run game was also hitting the explosives. Of the Seattle's 4 plays over 20 yards, 3 were Kenneth Walker, 2 runs and a screen. That's what you need out of your quarterback. So, and by the way, quarterback in Geno Smith, who for, I think, all the good things he did in Seattle, did have high turnover rates, right? Or turnover-worthy plays. So, and Sam during the regular season had the most turnovers in football, so I'm not trying to erase that, but his ability to avoid that in the postseason was massive.
A huge part about being great at quarterback isn't just putting up huge stats or having amazing plays. It's understanding the assignment. And the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, has a postseason passer rating of 89. Like, yes, he's had some amazing games, but there were a lot of games that those Patriots teams won where Tom Brady did exactly what Sam Darnold did and understood that as long as we're avoiding negative plays, we can win this game because of the strengths of this team overall. Mina, the last thing before we get out of here, there's intellectually, we know the Seahawks have won once it's like 100% win probability, but when in your heart did you know that you were going to be a Super Bowl champion?
Ben asked me this right after, and I gave an answer that was like, I have a clip, and I'm like, should I post this? Because it's a little cocky, but it was the second Patriots drive when Witherspoon got him. Like, or forced the incompletion. I just felt like it was so obvious in this game so quickly, similar to last Super Bowl with the Eagles, that they just could not handle the Seattle pressure plan. Not just the pressure, but the way Seattle was bringing pressure. They just looked completely befuddled out there. And like you said, early on, it was a little dicey with Sam. There were a couple balls that looked like they could have been picked, but I felt like very strongly, very early, that New England's offense was just not capable of getting it done.
Yeah.
That's how it played out. How about you? Was that the same for you early? It was a very relaxing Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yours is even just a touch more confident than mine. I said out loud at my house, if they get this to 9 points, they're going to win this game, because fluky things can happen. You can drop a punt return. You can have a meltdown pick six. You can have a broken coverage on defense. One score can flip a game, but I didn't think anything like that was going to happen twice. And once the Seahawks were up by more than a touchdown, that's when I felt it. To be honest, in my head, I knew the Seahawks were going to be Super Bowl champions when the clock hit 0-0 against the Rams. I think the Seahawks did too. I think it's similar again to the Broncos Super Bowl, where all the quotes came out later as the years went by were like the defense, like, yeah, we knew we would kill them. Yeah. Well, Mina, thank you so much for carving out a sliver of your time today, for coming in. I know there are other demands on your times today, so it really does mean a lot. It means a lot that you're on the show. It means a lot that you cover the sport the way that you do, and it means a lot to be able to call you a friend.
This is a fun season, and here's the thing, Jacson. This team should probably win the Super Bowl next year, so we should be right back. I mean, it's a long season, a lot can happen, but immediately we pivoted to like off season, and honestly, cap space, great. Not that many free agents, so coaching staff is probably the biggest question mark. Yeah. But I think this should be a very good football team next year.
I think so too, and it's nice to have that in the back pocket. I'm resisting the urge to start looking forward yet, because there's always the assumption that, once you win, this is just how it's going to be for a while. Dynasty incoming. We know all too personally that is not guaranteed. But you are right. The future is bright. The present is even brighter. Mina, thank you.
Bye, buddy.
Once again, a huge thank you to Mina for coming in. And as sad as we all are that we couldn't overlap, I am just as thrilled to be joined by my next guest. He is truly one of the most entertaining voices covering the NFL and possesses a gift that I've always admired. It's the ability to take high-level football concepts and present them in a way that is not only easy to grasp, but unique and authentic. He's the co-host of the hilarious Ringer Fantasy Football and Ringer NFL Draft shows. But most importantly, he is also a Super Bowl champion by proxy. It is the Danny Kelly, y'all. Danny, what's happening?
We did it.
We did it.
We did it. Has it sunk in for you yet? It hasn't really sunk in for me. I mean, it has, but it's like, it still feels surreal and doesn't feel real. It's just like, wow, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. We won the Super Bowl.
I know.
Super Bowl champs.
It's easy to forget that this is the whole point. This is why we put ourselves through everything as fans. It's like when you think about going on a hike, you think about the actual hike more than you do about the reward at the top, the view from the top, which it is the whole point. But you just spend so much time about the preparation and the fitness and the supplies and the timing and all of that stuff. And then you get up there and it's like, oh yeah, this view is every bit as good as I thought. Maybe even better. So yeah, I'm just letting the cool mountain breeze blow over me right now, man. It's beautiful.
Same. I know it was really fun. The Super Bowl was great. They dominated pretty much exactly the way that I thought they would. And you know, they basically just slowly choked the Patriots to death in terms of what they did on defense. It was just crazy how they basically gave up two big plays in that game. You know, the two big plays to Mac Hollins on that one drive, and then the rest of it was garbage time and whatever. But they absolutely just dominated. But yeah, after the game, we did our podcast. We kind of broke everything down, got to kind of enjoy the afterglow of that, and then went back to my hotel. I was in LA, and I was just like, this is the greatest scroll. It's the opposite of doom. What's the opposite of doom scrolling? Because like I'm so used to doom scrolling these last like this decade or whatever, but it was the best scroll of all time. Just like watching all the celebrations, seeing all the pictures of people at the game, you know, the stuff from the in the locker room. It's just like, man, and you said it is perfectly. It's like, this is a meme on Instagram. It's like, I almost forgot that's the whole point.
Yeah.
This is the whole point of like watching sports. And it's crazy because we're living in, you know, the golden age. We just got to see the Mariners almost made it to they were like 8 outs from the World Series or whatever. That was an incredible run by the Mariners. The Seahawks win the Super Bowl in the same year. I saw you posted this, I think in the 2000s. So this century, the Seahawks have more playoff victories than any other team.
Than any other NFC team. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you have to step back and take a look at what we're able to go through right now. Like I've won. I've got to experience 2 Super Bowl championships for my team in the time that I've been covering football, which is, you know, it's a rare thing. It's not something. Heifetz, my co-host Heifetz, who you know.
Yeah. I
mean, the joke between us is I haven't, since I've known him in 2016, he's only actually rooted for games to win like 3 or 4 times. The Giants have just been absolute, just one of the shit, like other than the Jets, like the shittiest franchise in the NFL, basically. So, you know, it's good to kind of step back and realize how lucky we are as Seahawks fans that this is the era that we get to live in. I mean, you know, John Schneider's done this with 2 separate, completely different teams, different coaches. You know, so we're getting to experience one of the greatest GMs of all time, but likely.
Yep. Like I told you and Mina, it turns out you do, in fact, have to hand it to ISIS.
I know he had a rough patch there, but you know what?
He did it, man.
He's over time. He's proven, I think, to be one of the best eyes for talent, best eyes for finding guys that are going to fit into what they're trying to do. I mean, you can't really argue against his track record. Obviously, there was a few years there, and that happens to every GM ever. There's no GM that has a sterling record their whole career. You know, but you know, even some of the greatest GMs of all time have had off years. So. And also, by the way, you know, this is something worth mentioning, but like they've been so consistently successful that they don't have a ton of high picks.
That's right.
So, you know, you have to take that into account as well. But yeah, I mean, John Schneider going from Pete Carroll to Mike Macdonald, I didn't think I could love a coach more than Pete Carroll, truthfully. Man. You know what I mean? We've talked about this. Like he's almost like a father figure to a whole generation of Seahawks fans.
Yeah.
He guiding light in terms of the win forever philosophy, the always complete philosophy, all that stuff has been important in my life. I didn't think I could love a coach more. And then we turn around and Mike Macdonald, I mean, he's totally different, but I would run through a wall for that guy. He is, and sorry, I'm just ranting now, but like, to me, he is the embodiment of competence porn, which is like a whole genre of movies that I absolutely love. Basically like you watch a movie and you're like, man, that guy's just fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
It's, Sicario, Benicio del Toro's character in Sicario,
right?
Competence porn,
right?
The sniper in Clear and Present Danger, competence porn. Things like that, where you're just like, man, with Mike.
You're never shouting at the character like why are you doing that, you idiot?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, no, and that's true. Like that was one of the things that I was trying really hard for the sake of honest conversation, leading up to the Super Bowl, to try and find edges that I thought the Patriots might have, and it was a reach. I'm not being cocky. This is not revisionist history. You and I have been texting every day since the NFC Championship game. You know that, like, my confidence that this game was going to go like this was high the whole time. But the NFL is full of surprises and
weird stuff happens.
Weird stuff happens. And so I was like, all right, if the Patriots do win this game, where do their edges come from? And I'm searching. I thought one that could be is the fact that even though these guys are both here for the first time as head coaches, Mike Vrabel does know what the Super Bowl experience is like. And one of the things that gets lost in all of the coverage and attention leading up to the game is just the demands on these players away from the field. It's unlike anything they've ever experienced. Even if they've won national championships in college, there's nothing like the demands on them from the media, from the pressures of legacy, from their friends and family. They're trying to get tickets. I'm sure their phones are blowing up in ways that, they never have, certainly since they've been drafted. And they have to manage all of that while also preparing to play the biggest games of their life. And I was like, okay, Vrabel's been through that. McDonald hasn't.
Guide them through, yeah.
And yet he whipped their asses from a coaching standpoint. Like just like he's been doing, we both love.
He's a genius. He's a genius, right?
He is.
Like, this is the thing I keep coming back to is like, he's just a genius. And the Seahawks fans are so lucky that this guy is in charge because I think he's a good leader. Sorry to interrupt you, but like,
no, please.
He is I just feel like he is exactly. I feel like you can say this now pretty confidently with your chest. Like, he is the Sean McVay of defense.
That's right.
And man, that feels good. That feels good to have that because Sean McVay has been driving us fucking crazy since the moment he got a head coaching job. So, continue. But yeah, like I truly feel like he is on the cutting edge and a football genius.
Well, and this is something that I have said probably a dozen times in between doing the show and writing the articles over the years, but I always felt that what made Pete Carroll so great was the Monday through Saturday stuff. That I counted on him to have his teams truly ready to play every game as if it was a championship. And then Sunday, I'm just holding my fucking breath when it comes to challenges and timeouts. Very hard
to do all the days.
Going for it on fourth down, like.
Yeah.
Like Pete Carroll was a genius too, but he was like the eccentric genius where
he's like Willy Wonka.
That's right. That's right. It was like he was an impulsive genius, whereas Mike McDonald is a methodical genius. He understands the program that he's put in place. He doesn't deviate from it. And that's not to say that he's stubborn, because we have seen him adjust the way that he coaches games based on how it goes early on. He talks about the first quarter being a diagnostic for how he needs to coach the rest of the game. Like, that's crazy. You don't hear a lot of coaches talk about that. And you're right. He is the Sean McVay of defense. But even Sean McVay got to a Super Bowl in what I think his second season. And his team was completely unprepared for that Patriots team. Now, that Patriots team is not this one, but that wasn't an all-time great team either. And he got his ass kicked by Bill Belichick in that game.
He got taken to school by Belichick.
And he said as much.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting you bring that up. I totally agree with you on all of that. I think a couple of things. First off, with the in-game adjustments, I remember very vividly, obviously it's just a few days ago, but like this really stood out to me in the game. The halftime interview with Mike McDonald. Yeah. Where they're going into halftime. Sorry, my dog is barking because my mom's dropping off something.
It's all good, brother.
Going into halftime, I think they asked him, kind of like just like a very general, like, what's going on? How are you feeling about the first half? He's like, and he talked about like, there's a couple things I saw that we need to get fixed and get cleaned up. We're doing everything we're supposed to be doing, but we're going to go in and get a few things fixed, and then we'll be fine. And like just his, he's just so even keeled. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear
man, George is celebrating too. George is celebrating too. It's all good, man. Let it ride.
But yeah, so I just remember even at halftime I was like, good job, Mike. I said that like, Craig and Danny are just like laughing at me like, what was that? What was good about that? But I just felt like he has a plan, and he has such a good way of adjusting inside of games, inside of quarters, where he can kind of like identify. This is the hardest part about coaching freaking George. The hardest part is identifying the issues in the game and coming up with ways to kind of like counter that. And I think he does a great job of that. And I think that's like what makes McVay so great as well. And the other thing I will mention is like, I felt this way again when the Seahawks played the Rams in the NFC Championship game, and this is just whole thing is just going to be George barking. In the NFC Championship game, I thought that the Rams kind of changed their tendencies, and I thought that was very intentional and a direct result of what happened in that Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't want to come in and just do what you're doing and not have any sort of like counterpunch or like different way of doing it. And I think in that NFC Championship game, the Rams ran like 11 personnel, way more than they normally would. It kind of felt like a weird game plan by them.
Yep.
But I think they were trying to change tendencies and give, the Seahawks something that they weren't ready for. And, obviously it worked. They had a ton of yards. They did a great job in that game. The Seahawks ended up winning, thankfully. But in this game, I felt like Mike McDonald did the exact same thing, which is they blitzed the fuck out of the Patriots in the first half. That was like such a different vibe than what they normally do. I think they saw something. And look, this is the other thing I love about McDonald is he is ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest vulnerability for the Patriots by far is their offensive line. And we're going to put that offensive line in hell in this game. We're going to absolutely put them in hell. And they did. I mean, so many blitzes, Devin Witherspoon flying off the edge, Devin Witherspoon coming down from 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and blitzing. I think Julian Love did a couple of blitzes. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was just like they were bringing the heat in that game. And I thought that was a great tendency breaker. I don't know if the Patriots were ready for it. It sounds like after the game, the Seahawks said, I think Witherspoon said the Patriots offensive line kind of had tells.
Did you hear what he said the tell was?
What did he say the tell was?
He said that they started shaking on pass plays. If that's not the most intimidated by your opponent thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I just love everything about Mike McDonald. Again, it's competence porn. I just love I love having the full confidence that he is in control.
Yes.
And I felt like I never felt at any point in the season like he lost control.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? From even in the losses, he was under complete control. And they only lost by they lost by 9 total points in their 3 losses. They won 17 games this season.
I know.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I just think it's so cool having a coach like that who you like really know is on it. It's like watching a chess grandmaster, kind of, you know what I mean? Like he's just one step ahead of everybody. And it doesn't mean there's never going to be trials and tribulations, but I just always felt very confident that he knew what the answer was for everything.
Yes. Well, and it's such a great point, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because one thing that has always been true about the NFL and will remain true is whatever's working now will get figured out. I'm fond of calling the NFL the fastest learning organism on planet Earth. And no matter what gets you to the top, that now becomes the blueprint that every other coach is trying to reverse engineer. And that's why teams don't win 10 Super Bowls in a row. But, the closest thing we've seen to that is the Belichick Patriots. And McDonald does something very similar to what Belichick did. And you hinted at it. It's that ruthlessness of figuring out where the weak link on the other team is and just spamming it relentlessly. Yeah. No sense of it's, I mean, I mentioned comparing it to a pitcher when Mina was on, but it's like knowing a guy can't hit a slider low and away. And so you just keep throwing it to him, knowing he's going to chase it, right? You don't give him the chance to get that grooved fastball over the middle. You just keep throwing it until he hits it. And that's the thing, is like McDonald was throwing heaters and changeups all season long. And it's like, okay, we're going to guess on each play as he's showing 6-7 guys coming. We're going to have to guess whether this is the fastball or the changeup. And then in the Super Bowl, he just came out throwing 12-6 curveballs. And it was like, there's nothing on the scouting report for this.
We didn't know he had that pitch. Yeah.
I know. It was awesome. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, surprised you with the curveball in the first inning. Now you're going to have to think about it. It's like, nope, we're going to just keep throwing it until you hit it. And they never did. And we knew that Devin Witherspoon was an incredible blitzer. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, he's a great tackler. He's really good in coverage. He's all of these things. And it's a cool little party trick that he does that he can blitz also. And it was like, this is what happens when you just completely weaponize a special player. And that is what McDonald has done with his defense. It's what he did in Baltimore. It's what he did at Michigan, is identify unique skill sets, figure out how to disguise those, and then completely weaponize them. And, it was wild. Before the season, we had Greg Bell on, who covers the team for the News Tribune. And we were talking about Eamon Worry. And this, the people listening to the show know this. Leading up to the draft, I fell in love with Nick Eamon Worry. But I fell in love with the potential, because
it's like the DK Metcalf of defenders.
100%. It was just it's a size, speed, explosiveness combination that it feels impossible that it exists, even in a league full of aliens. But you're like, this guy is so raw, and they're going to ask him to do a lot. And Greg Bell said, Mike McDonald thinks he's found his Kyle Hamilton 2.0. And I was like, well, okay.
It just felt too good to be true.
Yeah, I love Eamon Worry as much as anyone, but come on, man. And Bell is such a straight shooter. I was like, I know there's no hyperbole here, but there's no way McDonald actually thinks that. And then here he is in year one. He was probably, even if he didn't have the injury scare, he was still probably the most talked about player leading up to this game, on the best defense in the NFL, one of the best defenses we've seen recently. And you're like, this is a rookie that came out raw as hell and was asked to learn 3 different positions from day one. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, because I remember those discussions and hearing it's an easy comp to make, because McDonald coached Hamilton and Baltimore and blah, blah, blah. And it's easy to make sort of those comparisons, like this is his version of like one of the most important players in the NFL. And to see that happen in his rookie year, and it's actually legitimately happening, is crazy. I kind of was just like, that's nice to say and that's exciting to hear, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. I don't know if he's as good as Hamilton, but I think he is an absolutely critical part of that defense, and he's one of the best safeties in the NFL already. It's like crazy. There's so many plays where his explosive speed and range and power. There was one play in particular in the Super Bowl, and this happened all season, where he just makes high degree of difficulty plays look easy. And this was early on in the game. I think it was like the first or second drive.
I think we're thinking of the same play.
Drake May got outside the pocket.
Yeah.
Looked like he had about 40 yards in front.
It was on like a 2nd and 22 also.
Yeah. Yes. And Eamon Worry was the only guy left. And by the way, he had to get off a block too, which is underrated part of this play. So he beat the block and then made an open field tackle on Drake May, which is not easy. This is a big, fast, strong guy in Drake May, and
a quarterback who led the NFL in rushing yards by quarterback this year.
I mean, he was legitimately his rushes, I think, were more valuable than any other quarterback's rushes were this year. Like he was picking up first downs, keeping them going in terms of getting to the sticks and everything. So yeah, that was a critical part of this game. And when he did that early in the game, I was like, man, again, this just reminds me so much of the Legion of Boom. They just are so good at tackling. They rally to the football. They hit. They're high energy. They are just relentless. And watching that play, I think that was like one play early in the game where I was like, okay, we're going to be fine. He's fine. first of all, because I was worried about him coming into this game.
Yeah.
Even though he was off the injury report, that kind of feels like bullshit. Because if you see him like limping 2 days earlier, I'm like,
I wish they wouldn't even. I'm like you, constantly refreshing, just looking for some footage or update from Nicky Manwari. I'm texting all the beat reporters, like, tell me something.
Yeah.
And then you see these clips, you're like, okay, all right, a clip of Manwari, and then you watch it, you're like, oh no, I wish I hadn't seen that.
Well, my initial thought was honestly like, he's probably going to play. They'll probably shoot him up with some good drugs, and he probably won't, he'll be able to go out there and play, but he's just not going to be himself. That was my main worry. He's just not going to be as fast and explosive as he normally is. But he went out there, and I didn't notice any difference in the way he played.
No.
I mean, he was all over the place.
Yep.
So, and it's him and Witherspoon. I think this is the interesting chess match thing that's going to happen next year. Like you said, I agree. Coaches are going to have an entire offseason to figure out ways to beat tendencies and beat certain issues that the McDonald defense brings up. I think, ultimately at the end of the day, it's more than just X's and O's. It's Jimmy and Joe's. The Seahawks have some incredible players.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the LOB era where, they didn't do anything exotic. They just were better than everyone, and the Seahawks defensive line makes it extremely difficult to game plan because they can get pressure with 4 and they're just so good up front and they can stop the run. But where I'm going with this is they have 2 special players in Witherspoon and Manwari that sort of changed the math and they changed the arithmetic of how you match up with different personnel. Basically, Manwari and Witherspoon are linebackers and defensive back bodies and speed.
Mm-hmm.
So they can cover. You don't have to take them out. You don't have to take them off the field, when they're likely passing. They're good in coverage, but they're also really good run defenders. They can, the Seahawks can stop the run with too high.
Yep.
That's the key piece of any defensive football over the last 50 years is like, how are you going to line up and stop both the run and the pass? And the Seahawks have like really good personnel to do that. So it's more than just McDonald. I do think McDonald is very, very smart at how he schemes up pressure and how he tricks the opposing quarterbacks. But yeah, you're going to have to see, evolution of the defense as we go along. But I am really confident in the personnel the Seahawks have because they just have such versatiile players.
Yes.
Able to do kind of different things.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Just stick with the pitching analogy. Pete Carroll, his defense was just throwing 100-mile-an-hour four-seam fastball over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your best bet is try and slap it the other way. And ultimately, that's what we saw Tom Brady do, is just like, okay, I'm not going to try and take this guy yard. I'll just slap it the other way for singles and doubles and get my runs that way. Whereas Mike McDonald has a bunch of different pitches, but you always hear pitching coaches in modern baseball talk about tunneling your pitches, where all the pitches look the same right until they do what they're going to do. You can't read it out of their hand. And that's the thing. Like, he's always showing 4 down and 2 or 3 guys stalking the defensive line, but there's nothing that you can look at and say, oh, when they do this, that means the blitz is coming from the right side, or this means they're going to drop the end into coverage. Like you just don't know. So you are having to guess the pitch, and that makes it hard. And then the other thing, you're talking about what Witherspoon and Manwari do, and I think it's such a good point, is the fact that they can provide cover for your defense, because all of these coaches in the NFL, even the young ones, grew up believing in certain immutable laws about the relationship between offense and defense. And if you can get certain personnel into certain spots of the field, it takes away these plays and opens up these other plays. And that just gets thrown in the trash with this defense. And, now Manwari becomes like this prototype that I think a lot of teams are going to chase, because there's proof of concept. It's like in basketball for the longest time, your bigs played down low and they were post players, and they rebounded and they defended the rim and they scored inside of 6 feet. And it was like kind of a cute little anomaly when you'd get an Arvydas Sabonis or a Sam Perkins. It's like, a big man that shoots a 3. And then Dirk Nowitzki shows up, and all of a sudden it's a 7-footer that can score from anywhere. And what that does to your defense is you can't just sit your power forward in the paint or near the blocks. You got this big slow guy that's got to go cover him 25 feet away from the basket, and that creates tension everywhere else. And that's what a player like Nick Emenwari and honestly a player like Devin Witherspoon allow you to do. And so we're really going to see, I think, a lot of teams try and chase that prototype. Like, think about how crazy this is. And I know you guys talked about it briefly on your show after the Super Bowl, that the Seahawks used a top 5 pick on a sub 200-pound nickel corner from not even like a prestige program. He's
Illinois,
190-pound, 5'10", little shit talker from Illinois that goes top 5 over Jalen Carter, right? And it's just like, oh yeah, this is why. And Michael Sean Dugar on this show a couple weeks ago talked about how he is the spiritual leader. You called him the spirit animal for this defense. That is a wild thing to say about the smallest guy on the defense and one of the youngest.
He's a freaking Wolverine.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I saw this video. I saw this video of a Wolverine go. I don't know if it was real. We're living in the age of AI. I think it was real, but it was a Wolverine going after an elephant. And the elephant just kicked the shit out of this Wolverine, but he just kept coming back. Yeah. Or maybe it was a honey badger, whatever it was. But it's basically that, to me, is what Witherspoon is. I still vividly remember the first time I turned on Witherspoon tape from Illinois. I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
This guy is a absolute maniac.
Yes.
And I even have like a tweet from before the draft, I think, of just like singing his praises. Basically, this guy's the biggest maniac I've ever seen. And when the Seahawks took him, I was like, love that. Because even though he is small, he plays big and he plays absolutely out of control, turned up to 11 at all times. He is flying around. Even in the late fourth quarter, there was a play where he's like flying down from the second level and knocking a guy out of bounds on his ass. I think I don't remember who it was, but he just like, he comes out in the broadcast angle. He just comes flying downfield, like downhill, like a maniac. I mean, that he has no off button. From what I hear, he's all about football.
Yes.
He doesn't give a fuck about anything else but football. And that is just such a perfect example of, I think, like the type of player. And it was originally Pete Carroll and John Schneider that kind of made that archetype. And now it's John Schneider still carrying that on. Like the grit guy, guy who loves football, who lives for football. All he thinks about is football. That is Witherspoon. And he's such a important piece of that offense or the defense, even though he is like generally what is considered less important position, a nickelback. I mean, he plays outside too. He plays all over the place. But that's why top 5 picks are not normally 185-pound guys. This is a big man's game, but he plays like a freaking maniac. He's out there attacking the elephant because he just doesn't give a shit. And it's infectious. It's infectious for the rest of the players on the defense too.
Absolutely. Like, what excuse do you have when you're seeing the smallest dude on your defense take on a pulling guard, right? Like,
he's crazy. He's insane. He's an insane person.
He is, but he's smart, right? It's not like he's just out there going ballistic and freelancing. He is so devastating, not only because of that mindset you're talking about, but because he does it all within the structure of the defense. And what he and Emenwari, Kobe Bryant, a lot of these guys in the Seahawks defense do is because they tackle so well and so willingly is it allows you, not only that player, but the rest of your defense to never have to cheat on their assignment. When you trust that all of your players are going to tackle, it means you don't have to have the safeties' eyes in the backfield. You don't have to have the corners peeling off of routes early because they think there might be a check down. You don't have to have your pass rushers give up on trying to beat their block because they know they need to rally to the, go make up for, a linebacker being out of position or anything like that. You just get to play your defense, and everybody, 12 as one. It sounds like such a cliche, but truly, like, that is the idea. Is everybody is going to be 9% better than what would normally be asked of you. And you add that all up, you have a 12th defender on the field. And it really does feel like they're playing with an extra man out there because of that.
I know. I think you can. There's been, I can't remember who said it, but it's some opponent that they played. I think it said something along those same lines. Like, it feels like they are playing with 12 guys out there.
John Schneider said that about Mike McDonald in the introductory press conference.
That's right.
He was talking about, because they had played they were 5-2 going into 5-1 Baltimore, and it was the game of the week, and Pete Carroll's got these guys ready again, and they just got their teeth kicked in. It was one of the biggest beatdowns of the entire last 15 years as Seahawks fans, and that is what Schneider talked about when he was like, that's my guy. I need to go get that guy, because it felt like they had 12 guys on the field. Yeah,
that's a great point. That great memory. I mean, it's so true. It's so true. It just feels like there's no room. I mean, look at the one. I think it's a perfect encapsulation of the Seahawks defense. Is like one of the biggest plays the Patriots made was that whole. It was like, I don't know how he even completed this pass. It was that pass down the middle to Mac Hollins right after the streaker got injured or whatever, got on the field. When you watch the end zone view of it, there's like 6 Seahawks within 5 feet. Like the most impossible freaking play.
Yeah.
And, credit to May for making that throw, because it was a great throw. But also, like, that was fucking lucky. The Seahawks were on all that. This is like a great encapsulation to me of like how hard it is to make explosive plays against the Seahawks defense. Because I mean, you really have to thread a freaking needle to get anything deep down the field. That was a great throw. I think the Seahawks knocked that down 9 out of 10 times, probably.
Yes.
But,
and they did like the other 9 times that they tried that.
Right.
In the game.
I mean, legitimately, going into the fourth quarter, it was either late third or early fourth. The Patriots had punted more times than they had completed a pass. It's 7 punts and 6 completions.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that is, you can't get more dominant than that. It's insane what they were doing to a Super Bowl team, to a Super Bowl offense.
Yeah.
And so,
because here's the thing, you can say that, the Patriots were schedule merchants, and, this was an all-time easy path to the Super Bowl. And look, they're not the first team to ever take advantage of an easy schedule. But one thing that has always been true and will always be true is no bad teams make it to the Super Bowl.
Right.
They might not be an all-time great team, but no bad teams get there. Yeah. And they looked like a bad team because of how ready the Seahawks unit was for them.
Yeah, I mean, they might have been schedule merchants. I think that's fair.
Sure.
That's fine to say. I think that's true. But I mean, they still, the way that they beat the teams that they beat, I want to say they were
They won 17 games also. We talk about the Seahawks winning 17 games.
They won 17
games.
That is really hard to do in the NFL, no matter how easy, your schedule is. I'm trying to pull up the stats here. I can't find it. I think they were, they were literally number 1 in offensive success rate this year.
Mm-hmm.
So they just move the football. That's over teams like the freaking 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Packers, Bills, Cowboys, Lions. Number 1 in offensive success rate. So this is not a bad offense. They definitely had an advantage in that they didn't play like a bunch of great defenses, and when they did play great defenses in the playoffs, their offense kind of cratered. But this is still an NFL team, and they got to the Super Bowl because they have a good defense and they were a very efficient offense all year. So I felt very confident going into the game. The Seahawks were going to shut down that offense, and they did. But this was not like a bad team or anything like that.
No.
That narrative kind of annoys me because, I mean, this is a really good team and a very well coached team by Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where, I think one of the disservices that's been done when we talk, and I'm just talking broad view, people, media in general, talking about the NFL, is so much of the conversation, sometimes 70 to 90% of it, revolves around the quarterback. Is your quarterback good enough to win a Super Bowl? And it oversimplifies this formula down to, do you have a great all-time quarterback? And that's what you need. And don't get me wrong. Every team wants to have Patrick Mahomes, even though they haven't won the Super Bowl yet. Every team wants a Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and a Joe Burrow, and that's great if you have it. But what's really cool about these last two Super Bowls is you had dominant teams win without great quarterbacks. Now, you know, I like Jalen Hurts more than a lot of people. Sam Darnold obviously proved his worth this year. You're never going to hear me say another bad word about him. But these are not Pantheon quarterbacks. And it shows that there are more than one ways to not only win a Super Bowl, but to be a great team. I don't know that Russell Wilson was a great quarterback in 2013. Right,
no, he was a piece of the puzzle.
That's right.
He was very. I mean, he's in a lot of ways he was very similar to Drake May this season. I know Drake May almost won the MVP, and Russell Wilson never got to that. But like, Drake May was one of the most efficient, explosive passing quarterbacks in the NFL. It was basically like threes and layups.
Yes.
And he was one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. I want to say his like accuracy rate on deep balls was one of the best in the NFL. One of the best.
I think it's the best since they started tracking. Like to lead the NFL in completion percentage, that's usually like a stat that Jimmy Garoppolo gets, right? Because you're checking down all the time. To do it with the second highest average depth of target, we may never see that again.
Right. I mean, it's Russell Wilson-esque. Very different looking players, obviously, as Russell Wilson's very short and Drake May is very tall. But stylistically, deep balls, running, scrambling, they had a very similar style in terms of like the ways that they won on offense. And so, Russell Wilson was a cog in the machine. There's a reason that Legion of Boom, I think, ended up kind of resenting him because he got a lot of the credit. But he was not like a Tom Brady or a Joe Burrow where he was like carrying the offense on his back. He was a very important piece to the puzzle.
Yeah. And he represented a stylistic bridge from the golden age of quarterbacks that were winning before him. You know, the pocket surgeons, the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys and Drew Brees and I mean, Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan, I would say qualify as well, of these guys that are going to beat you with their brain as much as they are with their arm. And all of a sudden it's like, we've seen mobile quarterbacks and they're fun and they're the team, you want to be the Falcons when you're playing Madden 20 years ago because it means you get Michael Vick and you can run around doing cool shit. But it's like those quarterbacks had never won a Super Bowl. And it was like, here's this sneaky little shit, as you always call Brock Purdy. It's the most apt description of any player in the NFL. I crack up every time you say it. But Russell Wilson was a sneaky little shit.
Yeah.
Drake May is a sneaky little shit, sneaky big shit. And parentheses complimentary. And
totally.
And it's like, okay, now the NFL saw you can win that way. Now you're seeing these super athletic quarterbacks come into the league and teams actually build around that skill set instead of it being an oddity. And the trickle down effect has been huge. Not to say that Russell Wilson started this, but I think he was kind of the first proof of concept in terms of winning a Super Bowl this way. Is when we were growing up, the best athlete on the Pop Warner football teams, the middle school football teams, the high school football teams was the running back. Yeah. And you would give the ball to your running back as often as possible. And now the best athletes are playing quarterback. And we're seeing that, we're seeing these guys come in. Justin Herbert, a great example of just biggest dude on the field, fast, can still beat you with the arm. It's like all of a sudden it's just like, why wouldn't we put the ball in the hands of our best athlete on every single play? And so now you've got Sam Darnold, who is not unathletic by any stretch, but that is not how he wins. He showed this year, and he showed it last year until the biggest moments of the season. He showed last year that he can run a competent, modern NFL offense and make the throws and make the decisions. But you were always afraid of the glitch. You talked about this even up into the Super Bowl, where he had totally changed his play style after the Rams loss. And it's a huge credit to him that he went from turning the ball over, 10 times in a 4-game stretch, to basically not turning the ball over the last month and a half of the season, 2 months of the season. That's an incredible evolution. But he didn't lose the ability that made him a top 3 pick at 20 years old, that had teams saying, okay, maybe we can fix this guy, because he still can make those incredible third level tight window throws. And twice against the Rams down the stretch, he had to do that. Like, the team doesn't win without him doing that.
With an oblique injury.
It's incredible. So, and it speaks to what I think has really become a theme for this Seahawks team. And it's something that every coach talks about all the time. But once you really see it, you're like, oh, this is why coaches obsess over complementary football, because you'll see a style of coaching come into the NFL that the league isn't ready for and can beat most teams because they do this one thing really, really well. I think maybe the best example in recent memory for this is when Mike McDaniel took over for the Dolphins. And they dropped 70 points on the Broncos. And it's just like, holy shit, why didn't anybody ever think to just get all of the fastest players in the NFL and then get them the ball as soon as possible in space? And it's like, that worked. And all of a sudden, the Dolphins have the best team they've had in 20 years. And then they got to go play in 5-degree weather in Kansas City, and you can't move the football, right? There's certain styles make fights, and there's just certain teams that can take away the thing that you do the best, no matter how good you are at it. The Mike Martz Rams with Kurt Warner that came in and set all the records, right? And they came out and they won that Super Bowl against the Titans. And the Seahawks are the second lowest odds of any preseason odds of any Super Bowl champion ever at 60-1. The only team that had lower odds was the first Patriots championship. That 2001. That beat that Rams team. They took away the thing that they wanted to do. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, you can beat us, but you're going to have to beat us 4 yards at a time. And I don't care that you got Marshall Faulk back there. You could drive a truck between the splits in Mike Martz's offensive line. That is how he spread you out starting at the football and was like, you're just going to have to be faster than us, and no one could. And the Patriots, Bill Belichick, devised a system that says, no, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to run between the tackles. Well, you can't do that if this is what the system you're married to. The Super Bowl is a perfect example of idealized complementary football, in that to beat the Rams, they had to trade haymakers. It had to be standing toe to toe with the MVP and saying, I can punch as hard as you can. Yeah. And it's, rock'em sock'em robots. We're going to do this until one of y'all's heads pops off.
So it's like, reminds me of Rocky movie.
100%.
Like punching each other in the head 100 times and somehow still alive and standing.
That's what that game was. Yeah. And then Sam Darnold very clearly was not going to have that type of game against the Patriots. I think he started 5 of 16 in this game. He very easily could have had certainly 2, and I would argue 3 interceptions in that first half.
First throw was almost a pick six.
Dude, oh my God. Right. Yeah. Right. And then, it was an incredible throw that even got it to Jacson on that whirling, backpedaling throw into triple coverage. But Jacson gets hit as soon as the ball hits his hands. That could have been a pick. Christian Gonzalez had that pick at the goal line that Darnold was just late on. Like, that was...
he just lays that up a little higher and it's a touchdown.
Or throws it a step earlier. I mean, the window was there. It's the type of throw that Sam Darnold's been making most of the season. And so it's such a credit not only to Darnold, but to this football team as a whole to say, okay, you know what? This isn't going to be this type of game. It goes back to the diagnostic first quarter we were talking about, where it's like you use the opening sequences of the game to figure out what kind of game I'm going to coach. Sam Darnold understood that today the assignment isn't throw for 350 and 3. Today it is don't take sacks, don't turn the football over, don't kick the field goal, get into field goal range. If the drive stalls out, the highest scoring single season player in NFL history is going to make his kicks. How wild of a stat is that? Nobody's ever scored more points in a season than Jason freaking Myers.
This is like the one of the reasons I feel like the this hasn't sunk in for me yet is multifold, obviously. But I think, for starters, if you look at the DVOA, I mean, Aaron Schatz released it the other day. This Seahawks team was better than the 2013 team
Mm-hmm.
overall and on defense. The defense was better, according to DVOA, than that 2013 team. Better than any of the Seahawks LOB teams in terms of overall DVOA on defense. And then again, this was like, I think the third or fourth best team overall in DVOA all time.
Yeah, they finished fourth.
So, but did it feel that way? I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. They won the fucking Super Bowl. Who gives a shit? But like, I don't know if they felt like one of the best teams of all time, but I'm glad they won the Super Bowl. So it didn't feel necessarily like they were that dominant, even though you could argue that they were. I mean, if you look at some of the ass kickings they delivered during the season, some of the teams they beat the 49ers, who had 12 wins twice. They beat the Rams, who had 12 wins twice. They beat the Jags, who had 14 wins. They beat the Texans, who had 12 or 13 wins. They beat, there was a couple other teams that had like 9 or 10 wins. They went through a freaking gauntlet, and they either kicked your ass or soundly beat you in a lot of those cases. And so
there was never a game where it's like, oh, they just don't have it today.
Right.
And
100%.
you brought up Aaron Schatz, the godfather of DVOA, and he responded to exactly what we're talking about. I believe it was yesterday with the thread that's saying, a lot of people essentially are picking on DVOA because it's calling the Seahawks team a top 5 team of all time and saying it doesn't feel like it. And he went back through all of the other top 5 teams in DVOA history and talked about how they lost by 30 points in this game, lost to a backup quarterback in this other game, only scored 3 points in this game. There was never that.
It's nostalgia.
From 100%.
It's nostalgia and myth building.
Exactly. And there is no perfect metric, but the reason DVOA has kind of established itself as the closest thing that we have is because it does such a good job of cutting through the narrative noise.
The narrative or the feel.
And you know what's really cool about the Lombardi Trophy is those little plaques that they put the championship on don't leave room for narrative.
Right.
Is your name on that trophy?
Binary. You either are on it or not.
That's exactly right. And so it's like, sure. What a fun argument to be on the pro side of is that, this team was an all-time great. And you know what? If you don't think they are, that's fine. That's fine. Because it truly felt like there was a completeness to this team. You heard it in the interviews. Mina and I were just talking about this, where one of the things, anytime a team wins a championship, I stick around. Even if it was my team that I'm rooting for that lost that game or that series, I stick around and watch all the post game. I drink in all of the interviews. I want to know what that pinnacle of the human experience of sports is like for all of these different personalities. And I don't think this is a case where our friend Craig Horlbeck has a saying that I just love. Sometimes you're too far inside the bottle, you can't read the label. Right. And sometimes that happens where you just see everything through the lens of, well, this is the team that I follow the closest. This is the team that I root for. But I truly believe that this was unique in the responses you got from so many of these players immediately afterwards. There was a sense of this was expected.
Right.
And not in a braggadocio. We always knew we were going to win. Like, fuck you.
No, it's not fake tough guy.
No,
it's tough guy.
They truly believed all season long that they were the best team in the NFL, and they just felt like they had gone out and proven it. But the other thing that stood out to me, McDonald talked about this, multiple players talked about this on the field in the locker room, was I'm sad it's over.
I know.
I'm going to miss these guys. Yeah. I'm going to miss going to practice with these guys. We need to figure out how to get together in the off season.
What now? Yeah.
Like it's incredible. It's true at the highest level of money and fame and distraction and ego and alpha. This, you have what truly feels like this brotherhood feeling. And while there are big personalities on this team, like there were, especially on the defense, like there were with the LOB Seahawks, these are not personalities that become stories unto themselves, that become stories bigger than the team, that are going to get a 10-minute segment on First Take talking about what
Right.
this player said or did. They all have that, but it exists within the ecosystem that Mike McDonald has built.
Yeah. It's a very good point about how none of them are sort of the story. If anything, I guess Darnold is the story, but he's so humble. It's not that big of a story. You know what I mean? He's just kind of like, when he was accepting the Super Bowl trophy, he's like, I want to thank my teammates and I want to thank the defense. You know, like, look, he's like 12's giving up for the defense.
Seriously.
He knows a big part of his success right now is because of those guys. And so, and then when you think about the Legion of Boom, it's just like Richard Sherman screaming at Aaron Andrews and, Earl Thomas just being a little bit insane at all times. And Michael Bennett doing his thing, Marshawn Lynch doing his thing. They were just so much different as a team, identity-wise. But it is cool. This version is very cool. I don't think there's a better version, really. Like, one's not better than the other.
Right.
But they're very different, and I enjoy that. Like, this is like a totally different feel.
Yeah. It is cool to feel like there isn't like, you want your team to have a way, right? Like, there is a Steelers way of doing things, and that is great when it's working and frustrating when it's not. The Seahawks have now won Super Bowls on the field, similar style of play, but personality wise, very different. And granted, this is early. Success changes things for a lot of teams. Money changes things for a lot of teams. There's a lot of players on this team that have not had an offseason with the big contract extension yet. I don't think that's going to happen, but I've been down this road before. It
can't be naive.
It feels like this is going to last forever, and it probably won't. Hopefully we get a couple more out of this, but there's no guarantees. The AFC is going to be back. The Chiefs are going to be back. The Eagles in the NFC are going to be back. The Lions and the Rams and the 49ers are not going anywhere.
Right.
The Packers have a tremendous roster. And so it's just like, you want to enjoy it while they have, but you also don't get the sense that there's anybody on this team hyper-focused on their brand. It feels like their brand is winning a fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said about Witherspoon. It's like, have you seen him in a commercial?
Right.
He just doesn't give a shit. He wants to play football. And I feel like that's very, like, it sort of encapsulates the whole Seahawks defense. And JSN sort of, he lets his play do the talking. He's not like a big talker. And
he had opportunities with Lenore all season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Punching him in the helmet, and he just stands there, hands on hips, and waits for the flag to fly.
I mean, he had a great one-liner.
Yes.
What was it? It's like, I don't have time to read all my fans.
I don't have time to respond to all my fans.
My fans, which is fucking bar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they have a very distinct personality as a team, and it's like guys that love ball. And I know that's a purposeful thing that the Seahawks do. That's part of their grit. I think John Schneider has mentioned his grit rating or grit grade. And I'm sure that's like a big part of it is, do these guys love playing football? Do they live to play football? Are they just in it to get the girls or the money or whatever? And, there was an article, I think Michael Sean Dugar did it. I apologize if it was someone else, but it was basically like how John Schneider reassessed how he's grading. And basically they used to have a big draft board with a lot of players on it, and what they've done in the last couple of years and what they would attribute a lot of their success to lately is that they've just put fewer players on their draft board. They're like, you might be a really good player, but we don't like your personality and we don't think it's going to match what we're doing, and they take that guy off the board and they don't even think about drafting him. So that was something the Patriots did a lot back in the day under Belichick. The Packers pipeline, the Ron Wolf pipeline of draft, I guess, strategies has been more like you have way more guys on your draft board. But I think the Seahawks lately have adopted a smaller board, more focused, grit being a higher, value type of thing to talk about. And I do think you see that on this roster. I mean, these guys, they don't care about the limelight. They just want to win games. Mission over bullshit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm falling in love with this team. Obviously, I hope that they can keep it going. There's a lot of variables. They were very healthy this year.
Yes.
That's something that needs to be said.
It absolutely does.
But, you can't ever predict what will happen. But, I think they're set up really well for success in the long term.
Yeah, they seem like it. And to your point, here we are, been talking about the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl for I don't know how long, and that was the first time we've mentioned the Offensive Player of the Year. And I think,
right,
and I think
that crazy.
He was the only first team All Pro on this potentially all time great team. And it's at like if I told you that there was going to be a diva on your football team, what position would you guess they played?
Receiver or corner, probably. Yeah.
And here we are, the probably maybe two best players on this team are receiver and corner, and you just don't ever think about it. Like Jacson is not pouting because he had 4 catches for 27 yards in the Super Bowl. He's thrilled. He's
loving it.
He had a
looks
season.
Like he was having a great time.
Totally. He put up a season this year that some of the best receivers in the history of the game never did. And you just wouldn't know it. And it was just about.
You could say the same about Kupp too.
Yeah. I
mean, Kupp, Triple Crown winner.
Yes.
I mean, he's like legitimately one of the greatest receiving seasons of all time. He just fucking goes to work. You don't hear anything from him.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a big game. He had a good game.
Leading receiver for the Seahawks in the Super Bowl.
He might have been their leading receiver. It was a quiet offensive game, obviously, but he made some crucial plays. He made some crucial catches, and he's just like the same deal. He doesn't say anything. He just like loves winning. There was a video that came out the other day that I saw. They sent this to Craig and Heifetz because they were saying this on the podcast. Bell to ass.
Yeah.
There was a video of the Seahawks like in the fourth quarter. Somebody from the crowd gave them a belt, and they were like whipping. They were like whipping whatever like somebody's ass, on the ground, and they were just like having the ball on the sideline, belt to ass. But yeah, I think that was like the most egregious celebration they did. It was otherwise like very business-like, and like we just know we're going to win this game.
Yeah, after I think it was after a sack. It was after a big play from Devin Witherspoon. He pantomimed taking off his belt and folding it up and slapping with it, and it's just like, see, that's cool. That fits inside the parameters, right? And this Super Bowl, what was so cool about it was they didn't need it wouldn't have surprised me if Sam Darnold went out and replicated his performance. Like I have that faith in him now. If he replicated what he did against the Rams, but the fact that he wasn't going to have that type of game. And so Ken Walker is like, okay, put it on me. What do you have? 29 touches in that game, 160 something total yards, the most rushing yards in a Super Bowl by any player in 28 years. And this was a guy
did you see the stat? Hold on. I'm going to pull it up. Continue, and then I'll bring it back.
Well, so it's talking about Walker, right? Like he had become this question mark for this team, not only for this year, but for the future, as he's an unrestricted free agent this season. And, I've had this really cool opportunity the last couple of years to be a part of the Seahawks No Table twice a week with the Mitch Unfiltered podcast. And Brady Henderson is the third member of that. Mm-hmm. And before the season, he was more than hinting at the fact that Ken Walker was in the doghouse. McDonald was very frustrated with his inability to stay healthy, which I've always had a difficult time with that criticism, but also NFL coaches.
What are you, Dennis Allen?
Right. Yeah. But NFL and he never publicly, humiliated Walker over this, but it also is like these guys, NFL coaches have seen dozens, if not hundreds of players get hurt. They have expectations on how you are going to handle that. And there was frustration there. And we saw it throughout the season. Ken Walker played every single game this season. He didn't get hurt. He wasn't hardly even on the injury report all season. And yet he was still ceding all of these touches and snaps to Zach Charbonnet.
Took away all his touchdowns.
Took away all his touchdowns. And I don't think that was unintentional. I think they were rewarding the guy that spent all offseason in training camp doing everything that the coaches wanted him to do. But when Charbonnet went down, there was no sense of entitlement from Walker. It was just, I'm going to write Charbonnet's number on my wristband, and I am going to play my game and his game for him. I am going to pick him up and pick the team up by doing this. And to see him get rewarded with the Super Bowl MVP when he was the only guy doing anything for this offense. That's incredible. The fact that Jason Myers makes all of his kicks, sets a Super Bowl record for field goals in a game. None of them were, he wasn't bombing 58 yards, but he made all the kicks.
Swirling wind. They were talking about it the entire game.
100%. Michael Dixon, there's a funny.
I love Michael Dixon, man.
A funny Twitter account to follow is Puntalytics, and they're just all about punters, and so they've got the chart, the X and Y axis of net yards per punt and EPA per punt of all the punters in the history of the Super Bowl. And at the very top right was Michael Dixon, because this was a game that had to be won by field goals and punts. And I'm not going to talk any non-Seahawks fan out of saying this was a boring Super Bowl. Like, that's fine. But it's like I tweeted out in the third quarter, forcing your opponent to punt on their first 8 possessions is my love language. Like, I am into that. That shows a level of competence that you just don't see, and an unwillingness to ever give in on a drive or on a third down, and to say, you know what? We're just going to make you punt. We're not going to gamble for turnovers. We know they're coming, but we're not going to forget our assignment in order to force it. On offense, once we get into field goal range, we believe that field goals are going to be enough to win this game if it happens. We're going to try for the touchdown, but we're not going to force it. And if it's 4th and 4 from the 23-yard line, we're going to kick, because that's what this game is calling for. And we trust that our guy's going to make the kick. We trust that our punter is going to do exactly what needs to be done. And he had 3 coffin corners in this game. And one of them was in the fourth quarter when the Patriots brought 11 guys to try and block it. And he took half a step to punt that, and he knocked it out of bounds at the 4-yard line. It's just like, oh my God.
Yeah. It was like, look, one of quietly one of the most important plays of the game, the Seahawks gave up the touchdown to Mac Hollins on the next drive, so that's 19-7. I mean, this is still a game.
Absolutely,
obviously. Like, I felt very confident the Seahawks defense would be fine, but weird shit happens.
You start to tell yourself the story about how this comeback happens.
God, not again. I mean, the Seahawks were up 10 in their Super Bowl. They lost to the Patriots in 2014. So in the fourth quarter. So pucker factor starts to hit a little bit there. The Seahawks go 3 and out on the next possession, so it's still 19-7, and then Dixon hits it to the 4-yard line, and I'm like, we're fine. Yep. Like, at that point, I was like, there's no way they're going 96 yards. That was all I needed to feel better that they were securely going to win that game. I think that play, and look, I'm a believer in momentum. I know that there's arguments against it, but like, that play, I think, kind of took the wind out of the Patriots' sails.
Yes.
And they're like, fuck, we got to go. The Seahawks got the initiative back, essentially. They're like, we got to go 96 yards against this defense. That's not going to happen again. And then May threw a pick on the next drive. He was basically forcing it. And so, to me, the punting game, during the game, a lot of people were like, are we giving the MVP to Myers, like the first kicker ever to win an MVP in the Super Bowl? I thought it should. I was like, if you're going to give it to anyone on special teams, give it to Dixon.
Yes.
Because the way that he controlled the field position and put the Seahawks defense on the offensive, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, put the Patriots offense on their back heel, where they're really kind of backed into a corner on a lot of those drives.
You take pages out of their playbook. When you're inside your own 10, there's just certain plays they're not going to run. And it's the plays they're best at, right?
And early in the game, the Seahawks were on their back foot. I don't know if that's the right expression. The Seahawks were losing the field position game early on in the game. And then they flipped it at some point. I can't remember exactly where it was. And then basically from that point on, the Patriots had to go really long distances on every one of their drives. I mean, they went 3 and out 5 or 6 times in this game. They punted 7 or 8 times in this game. 7 sacks or 6 sacks plus the sack interception play. So yeah, I think Dixon was massive in this game. I just felt so good when he was able to kind of like play that field position game, especially when I knew there's going to be it was a low scoring game for most of the game. I was like, I knew that they could win this type of game because of their special teams, because of their defense, and because of what Kenneth Walker was able to, what he was able to do in the second half of the season was incredible. I guess the last third of the season, really, he came on. I saw this stat, the players, and this is one of those stats that's kind of specific, but still, it kind of tells you what kind of game he had. 125 plus rushing yards and 25 plus receiving yards. There's 3 players that have done that in the Super Bowl: Emmitt Smith, Thurman Thomas, and Kenneth Walker.
Unbelievable.
Hall of Famer Emmitt Smith, Hall of Famer Thurman Thomas, and Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, look, that's a specific stat,
right?
But it does. I mean, if they hadn't have called that hold on that touchdown late in the game, he would have had the most rushing yards in Super Bowl history.
Yes.
That's the kind of game he had. That's how important he was. And the Seahawks really couldn't get a lot going in their passing game. And early on in the game, I was kind of worried because the Patriots were sniffing out everything on outside runs. They were stringing out those runs. Kenneth Walker was getting stuffed 1 yard, 2 yard. Sometimes you lose a couple yards. I was like, man, this could be a really long game if they can't run the ball. And then they started doing some inside stuff. I didn't watch the game yet again for the all 22, but I think they were doing some like duo stuff. There was that Le'Veon Bell-esque run that he had where they started to open things up on the interior, and then they were able to get some outside stuff going, because you have to have sort of the ability to do it in different ways.
You need to give the guy whose job is contain a reason to slide his feet inside, a reason to shift his eyes inside, because otherwise you're not going to get to the boundary. And you're right, establishing that inside running game. And the Patriots tried to do that on their side. I love prop betting the Super Bowl, and every year I make well over 50 prop bets in a game. This is no different. And I'm sprinkling $25-$50 on everything. I made one big bet, or at least big bet for my budget.
Sure.
One $250 bet. And that was on the Patriots under 19.5 first downs. And I didn't even have to check the box score when the game was over to see if that bet was going to hit. I still don't know what the number is, because I knew it wasn't anywhere close. I'm like, there is no fucking way this team is getting 20 first downs against this defense. And, I don't know that they got half of that in this game.
They got...
Fourth quarter was a little...
They got 18.
Ooh, it came close.
You snuck in
Jesus. There. All right. Well, there you have it.
That's
Never
actually,
a doubt.
It
Never a doubt.
Reminds me, look, not to brag, but the Ringer Fantasy Football Show won the Ringer 107 competition with all the betting all season, which is hilarious. But one of our bets, to me, this was like the easiest bet of the entire Super Bowl, was betting the Patriots under 20.5 points. It's like, there's no fucking way they're getting 20 points. No fucking way. I said it on a couple of shows. I was like, if the Seahawks can get to 16, 17 points, they're winning.
Yes.
And because I was just like, there's no fucking way that they're going to score 20 points unless there's something absolutely bizarre happens. Thankfully it didn't. But I mean, I did sweat a little bit at the end of the game because they had 13 points and I was like, garbage time. What if they get to 20 and then try and go for 2? I'm like, fuck. But ultimately, Seahawks clamped down and did their job. I really don't even think they should have scored 13, to be honest. Like, the Seahawks defense was so good.
And the defensive players were openly pissed about it after the game. They're like, Devin Witherspoon's like, we honestly took our foot off the gas. Like, we're upset about that. I love that.
Love that about them. We as we went into the fourth quarter, I'm like, I want the shutout. Give me the shutout.
That, like, the ultimate stamp. Totally. Then you do get to talk about this being one of the all-time greats. So they go out and they shut out this team. And it was so cool to see them just kind of squeeze the life out of this team, just be the boa constrictor as opposed to a tiger in this game. And that was great because, I'll take it one further in terms of when I felt super confident. You could give me 10-1 odds to take the Seahawks to win the game. It was at 9-0. When it was 6-0, I'm like, okay, this is still within the range of something weird happening.
Right.
If they ever get up by more than a touchdown, the Patriots have no chance. 9-0, boring game, kicking field goals and punting. And I was like, they've got it. They've got it because of how complete the defense was.
Yep. I felt the same way. I felt pretty good at halftime, and it was 9-0. I was like, I don't know. It's going to take a miracle for the Patriots to come back. at this point, but based on the way that the Seahawks defense was playing. And I was with you. I think, I wanted a blowout because you want to blow out.
Yep.
You don't want to have to stress about it.
Yep.
But I kind of expected that this was the way the game was going to go. I think my guess on the score was 16-10. The Seahawks scored a defensive touchdown to kind of like make that reality not going to happen, which is I'm totally fine with. But I do feel like throughout most of the game, it felt like a 16-10 game. I mean, they were up 12-0. It felt exact. I said in the pregame stuff that I thought it was going to be like that first 49ers game in like week 18 or week 17, where it was 13-3. Seahawks were in control the whole game, but it still felt a little nerve-wracking. And it kind of turned out to be that game. They did pour it on in the fourth quarter, thank God. But yeah, I mean, this is the type of game I think that Mike McDonald is. We used to make fun of Pete Carroll for this, but this is the type of game he feels totally comfortable playing, where you trust your defense. Hopefully your offense doesn't make any mistakes, and you're going to, basically slowly, just kind of bleed them out. Like you're just like in control the whole time, even though it doesn't feel quite like it.
Yep. One of the overarching themes of this season that made me the happiest, and McDonald will never come out and say this publicly because it's going to come off as throwing shade, but watching this team, it was like, this coach actually believes you can win the game in the first quarter, that you can win the game in the second quarter, that you can win the game in the third quarter, and you can make the fourth quarter obsolete. It's why my prediction on the last show we did, our Super Bowl preview show, we had Sheil Kapadia on, and he asked me for my prediction, and I said 28-16, and it's not going to feel that close. It's going to be...
Ooh, you got close.
And get this, I was like, it's going to be like 28-9, and the Patriots are going to get a late touchdown that doesn't actually affect the win probability, but it's going to make the final score look closer. And that is almost exactly how this game went. And that's not because, look at how clairvoyant I am. It's just understanding this team, understanding how they want to win. And that style points are a bonus. They're not the point.
Right. Yeah. That Barner touchdown, this is a non sequitur, but I just thinking back to the game, the Barner touchdown, that felt pretty good. When they went up 19-0, I was like, man, we fucking got this. It's crazy. And it was also cool to see Barner score. Barner's become one of my favorite players. Dude. Just seems like he's another guy that just fits into the category of seems like he just loves football. Seems like a good guy.
Were you like me, where you felt like he was just a placeholder until Elijah Arroyo got up to speed?
Yeah. I mean, I think coming into the year, you overlook him because I think coming into the league, he was kind of thought of as like a blocker.
And he would tell you as much. Yeah.
And he's really developed, and I think he fits the offense perfectly because he can block. Obviously it's very important. There was an early run by Kenneth Walker on that. So he had two explosive runs on that early drive.
Yep.
I can't remember exactly what it was.
30 and 29 on back-to-back plays.
And the first one, I believe, Barner just washed his guy out of the way, and that helped open up the big rush lane on the outside. And I'm like, see, that's like why he's so important, is because he's doing the dirty work in the run game, but he's also very underrated as a receiver. I mean, he's got great hands. He's a huge, big, strong, target in the end zone. And I think Chase Daniel did a breakdown of that touchdown he scored, where basically they'd been setting it up. This is like why, we didn't really talk about this, but I'm going to miss Kubiak. Kubiak was great. Happy for him to get a head coaching job, but like they set it up the whole game where they were running these outside zone / toss plays to the outside. And on those plays, they were asking the tight ends and like the guys tight end on the formation to like block. And so you started to see the Patriots, and this is exactly what we're talking about, where you keep them honest. You started to see the Patriots kind of overplaying, trying to get through those blocks quickly and like get Kenneth Walker in the backfield. And so the safeties were coming down and being over aggressive against the run. And they identified that as a vulnerability. And on that play, Barner, I think he came across the formation on a motion, and then instead of blocking, which is what they'd done like 4 or 5 times before in the game, he just ran straight back, and the safety was like, fuck. And basically by that point, it was way too late.
Well, and typically when you see a tight end get loose on a wheel route or a scissors concept, which this play was, it's it's because of a communication breakdown. And Barner scored a lot of touchdowns where he just gets forgotten about. Mina Kimes pointed this out early in the season and would just like retweet it every time that it happened. Defenses just completely forget about this guy. That wasn't what happened on this, because on those setup plays that you're talking about, Barner's job wasn't to block at the line of scrimmage. His job was to get to the second level and block. And so on that play, he free releases through the C gap and takes on, it was either the nickel or like an off-ball linebacker right there. And you see that defender stance up to take on a block. And he just feints the block with his hands and runs around him. It wasn't like identifying, oh, there's not going to be anyone here. It was literally just jab, 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 counter. Here's the cross, where it's just like every single time I've seen your body set up like this, it's a left jab. And then here comes the right cross. And the guy just immediately realized he was fucked. And that was
see it, he's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Mina and I were talking about things we were happy to be wrong about this year. And she pointed out, Kubiak, that, you and I took more of a wait and see approach with him. She was honest about, like, I didn't really think this was going to work. And Kubiak was awesome for all the credit that we're giving Sam Darnold for understanding the assignment and being able to adjust the type of game he's having based on what is necessary. And he deserves all of that credit. That only works if your play caller is willing to change according to the circumstances and not be married to, well, this is how we win in my offense.
Yeah, and going back to the beginning of the year, I mean, I remember, I think the biggest problem I had, I wrote about this on The Ringer, the biggest problem I have is, like, from a process point of view, what the Seahawks did in the offseason, I don't think was typically thought of it. If, obviously the results are what they are.
Yep.
Like, they won the fucking Super Bowl.
Right.
These were some of the best moves any team has made ever.
Yes.
With that being the context, the process felt wrong to me. This was a team that was close to the playoffs last year. They won 10 games, and they ditched their offensive coordinator, they ditched their quarterback, and they ditched their star receiver for guys who had not really proven themselves. I mean, Clint Kubiak had ultimately done well early on in the season for the Saints, but then their offense kind of faltered late in the year. They had injuries and the quarterback lost, but it's not like he had done anything all that special. And then obviously Darnold had been good, but completely fallen apart at the end of the year. I'm like, this is a risky way of doing this. From a process only point of view, you don't see a lot of teams do that. Now, you laud the Seahawks for having conviction to do that, and they've obviously felt very strongly about that. And, obviously the results are just 1 in a million. I mean, they fucking won the Super Bowl. But from a process point of view, I think everyone had reason to question why they did that, why they went about it that way. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can't argue with the way that it went. It was perfect. It was perfect. Everything went exactly like you could have hoped. The play caller was one of the best play callers in the NFL, and he got a head coaching job in 1 year. The quarterback exercised his demons and won the Super Bowl, and he did everything you asked for the most part during the season, other than the turnover spate during the season. But for the most part, one of the all-time great free agent signings in NFL history.
Yes.
And so while I could have quibbled with the process, obviously, like, great job by John Schneider to take that risk, roll the dice, and it fucking paid off. It was an amazing plan, and it really, really worked. So, I think.
Well, in justifying the faith that ownership put in him in the post Pete Carroll era, totally. Because I don't think those are moves you make if you're fighting for your job, right?
Yeah,
like
that's another good point.
Those are job security decisions.
Yeah, and that's why there's there are arguments for the type of way that, like, the Steelers will use their coaching staff, where there's like not they have coaches for like 15-20 years, and they want to give these coaches the leeway to make hard decisions and not coach or make GMs make decisions to save their job. You know what I mean? Like, you don't be short-sighted. Build this the right way. Build this over time, and instead of making Band-Aid moves that can hopefully get you a few extra wins and not lose your job. You know what I mean? So, I think that's right. And again, credit to Schneider, man. talk about an all-time freaking run he's on. Not only did he win the power struggle with Pete Carroll, I don't know the exact story of that, but that's essentially what happened.
Yes.
They kept him and they fired Pete Carroll.
Yep.
Then he hired Mike McDonald, who is, I think, immediately proven himself to be one of the best coaches in the NFL.
Yes.
They got rid of they got rid of Geno Smith and DK Metcalf for Sam Darnold. The DK Metcalf pick turned into Emanwari, who is one of the most important players in the defense. They signed Lawrence in free agency, who is one of the best. If not for Darnold, he was the best free agent signing in the offseason.
Yes.
Period. The top 2 free agents in the offseason. They drafted Gray Zabel. They drafted Emanwari. You could go back a little bit further and look at some of the picks he's made. You could talk about the trade for Leonard Williams and then re-signing Leonard Williams. You could talk about the trade for Ernest Jones. And did they re-sign him yet? I can't remember.
Yeah. The trade for Julian Love.
Julian Love. I mean, he's batting like fucking 800.
I know.
Like it's crazy what he's done in the last like 3 years. There's a couple here and there things that didn't quite work out, but like he has absolutely smashed every aspect of being a GM. Is the trades, free agencies, and the draft, and he smashed it. So obviously, credit to him. Like that, it's incredible what he's done. I mean, I think he's going to go down as one of the best GMs in history.
Yes. Well,
even though, like, I think fairly, a lot of us were starting to doubt whether whether he still had it during sort of like the 2016 through 19 era. Like, there was not a lot of hits in those draft classes.
Yeah, and look, I've ate my spoonfuls of shit this season, and
this team made everybody eat crow
happily, right? Like,
yeah.
What I struggle with is the idea that this was so obvious and so inevitable. Like, even if we just want to narrow it down to the quarterback decision, like I was very publicly critical of the process of that move, and I was aggressive about it for sure. And I got so much flack for it, which, justified, certainly in hindsight. And my whole thought was, okay, how much of this is just co-signing the move that your favorite team did? Like if the Titans or some team you don't really care about decided to bring in Sam Darnold, like, would you be like, oh yeah, this is obviously the better move?
Right.
If that's truly how you felt, then congratulations. But I think there was so much of it that's just like, you need to have faith in what the team is doing. And it's like, yeah, the team that I am going to blindly trust their decisions on hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years,
right?
8 years. And so, I think that there was room. What I would redo is the strength with which I held that opinion at the time. Right. Like that's a learning experience for me, because I look back at some of the things I said on the show and some of the tweets that I had, and I was like, okay, you were coming across way more certain than you actually were. Like I backed myself into a corner of like having to fight this fight instead of saying, you know what, I have my doubts, but let's see how it plays out. Like that's what I would change. Another thing that I learned from this team, you know what? For the next year or two, I'm probably just going to blindly co-sign whatever John Schneider decides to do.
You know what? You've kind of earned that.
Exactly.
I totally agree with you. I think, there had been some down years there and some really kind of weird moves that I think, there was reason to doubt whether that was the right move. I was always like on the process point of view. I just thought it was
That's right.
It was a very weird process. And I was going to keep an open mind about it, but like it didn't seem like the best process from a team building point of view. And it's not something a lot of teams do, because when you're winning 10 games, you're kind of like, okay, well, how can we get another win or two? How can we get over the hump? Rather than like fucking getting rid of your quarterback, your star receiver, and bringing in a new offensive coordinator that are all sort of unproven. I think that was just like, it was a wild turn of events, but man, did it work out. And, credit to them for having the conviction to do that. But, I think it was totally fair to be like, is this the right move that we want to do? I don't know if how this is going to work out. There was a lot of ways that it could go. It is funny because if you look at sort of the sliding doors that have happened this year with So the Vikings let Darnold go in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Their GM is now fired because of that.
That's right.
Essentially, the Pete Carroll. Sorry, the Seahawks traded Geno Smith to Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll finished dead last in the NFL and is now fired.
How did he finish? Dead last? Oh,
yeah.
He had a good day though.
And then, now they have the first pick, and Pete Carroll's out of a job again.
Yeah.
So that's a crazy sliding door. And then DK Metcalf obviously went to the Steelers. It's like, okay, like he did fine there, nothing special. But then his team won the Super Bowl. And he was kind of talking about sometimes I think the grass can be greener on the other side, things like that. So it was just like a lot of sliding door moments with this season that you look back a year ago and did not see coming whatsoever.
Well, you go back to step one of what really, this is a culmination of honestly like a 4-year heater from John Schneider. We're just like now we're harvesting the fruit of those seeds that he was planting. And the first thing that he did in this transition was to trade Russell Wilson, most accomplished quarterback in Seattle history. And it's not just like, oh, hey, we traded this player or moved on from this coach and the guys that we replaced them with did well. It's like that first round pick turned into a top 5 pick. That was like the process argument against, and at that point I was fine, more or less. And I've checked the tape with moving on from Russell Wilson. But the argument against the process was, well, Russell Wilson is just going to go win 10 to 12 games for any team that's good enough to feel like they need to trade for him. So you're getting late first. Nope. Top 5 pick. Devin Witherspoon.
Out,
Thank you.
It really worked out so well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, it really is incredible how vindicated John Schneider has been in all of this. And look, after he built that first Super Bowl team, that first borderline dynasty roster, he got a free pass from me for years while he missed on draft pick after draft pick after draft pick and made trades, trading first rounders for Percy Harvin and Jimmy Graham and Jamal Adams and miss after miss. And so then it was like, okay, you know what? You made a whole bunch of deposits early in your career and you're allowed to make the withdrawals. Mm-hmm. He was overdrawn to me until recently. Well, now he just put millions in that account. He can take withdrawals for a while with me.
Yeah. Well, I've always kind of compared, and I think you could say this for literally every GM of all time. It's like a stock picker where sometimes you get on a hot streak and, you look like you're a genius and you're seeing the matrix and you have like more information than everyone else. And then over a long enough period of time, basically everyone kind of looks the same. Like you should probably just be putting money in the S&P.
The S&P 500 always wins. It's the famous Warren Buffett bet.
Yeah.
Bet every analyst at this hotshot New York firm, 15 years. If any of you outperform the S&P 500, I'll give you $1 million.
Right. Yeah. And it's, so I've kind of always looked at GM like that where, John Schneider early on in his career looked like fucking, I don't know who the most famous stock picker is of all time. But looked like a genius, and maybe this guy has the secret to how to do everything. And then he sucked for a long time.
And that's not to say that there aren't stock pickers out there that are very good at their job and worthy of being trusted with your assets.
Really hard at it,
exactly. Yeah. But markets change.
Right.
The global economy changes. The NFL changes.
Yes,
and
the competition changes.
Exactly. What won 12 years ago isn't necessarily going to be what wins now. And for John Schneider to become the first GM in history to win 2 Super Bowls where there isn't a single coach or player in the building that was there for the first one, it's never been done before.
I know. And now I'm kind of like back. I'm like, man, I'm just going to tail all his moves.
Yep.
But yeah, he I do think, and I never really lost sight of this because it's very much like a coach and has to, like Sean McVay is a perfect example of this. What's the Sean McVay offense? It's been a lot of different things over the years. He's evolved because he's had different players. He has different, the teams are adapting to what he's doing. So he's always trying to find new ways to kind of innovate. And he's been one of the best, if not the best, probably the best coach at innovating continually versus like, this is my offense, I'm going to run it until the wheels fall off. He like has, he was like wide zone early on in his career. Then he was duo in the run game. This year it was like 3 tight ends and kind of that innovation and the things they were doing with their tight ends. And that's all dependent on personnel. That's all dependent on the quarterback and everything. And so I think it's no different with your GM where, like you said, the markets change. The types of players that are successful become more in demand and they're therefore more expensive. So you have to kind of innovate where you're going to find an edge. The cornerback thing is like a perfect example. Early on, they found Richard Sherman. And then everybody wanted a fucking tall corner. And guess what? It's not like an automatic thing. Richard Sherman was a special player. Yep. But it was harder to find guys in that mold. So you have to innovate. And what are we looking for next? Okay, we're going to find the most athletic players we can find. The spark thing. And that was like a thing for a while that they did. And it was really kind of hit or miss.
It was.
And, then there was the grit thing. And I think over the years, they've managed to marry these things together. I think they still very much want guys who are really explosive and fast. But there's grit as another layer where they have to love football. They have to really live for this. It's not going to be just let's find fast guys and turn them into football players. They want football players who are fast. And they've sort of married some of these concepts and then they've continually evolved, I think. And that's what you have to do as a GM. So yeah, like John Schneider, what he's done is pretty much unprecedented. And I don't think that necessarily means all the next draft is going to be all hits, but I think that their process is the right process. And from a draft point of view, obviously I had quibbles with the way that their process was for last off season, but like you said, I'm like, he's earned the benefit of the doubt again for sure. Because what they've done is pretty unique. I mean, again, I think this will go down as one of the greatest moves in conviction and in trading away Geno and signing Darnold and going to, that whole the whole series of events that happened this offseason is going to go down in history.
Yeah, no question. And it's not like some easy formula that's able to anyone else can just go replicate, but you're speaking to a very under-discussed aspect of success. And, when I meet with home buyers and we start that process, it's very easy for the conversation to revolve around, here's what we want in a home. We want this many bedrooms and a fenced yard and a garage, and we want to be in these neighborhoods. And that is great. That is very, very important. An easy part of that conversation to miss is, what don't you want? Because that's just as important, because there's going to be a ton of homes that come on the market that you see that maybe have those things that you're looking for, and you get excited and you forget that, it's actually not where I wanted us to be. The house is perfect, but it's not in the area that I wanted. Things are priced the way they're priced for a reason. And you need to be just as clear about your deal breakers as you are about your wish list. And I think that's the process that we saw this front office go through, is understanding, okay, we tried this, we hyper focused on our wish list and it burned us in some occasions. Now we need to be aware of what we don't want. And as soon as I apply that filter for my buyers, what they don't want, it removes a lot of noise. It takes a lot of homes off of their search that they're not wasting time and energy and hope and emotion on when it's not going to be the right fit for them eventually. You have to know what you don't want just as much as you know what you do want.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, because when you kind of narrow down the list, then you can have more conviction about the decisions you're making. I think in the draft, having a smaller board can sometimes mean it can complicate things, because you have a certain amount of picks and you got to make the picks. But it does, I think, kind of. I think Schneider always talks about conviction. We had a lot of conviction on this guy or whatever. And yeah, that's why I think the way that they're doing it now makes so much sense, is because it's not like, oh, this guy's here, that's a good value. It's like, this guy's here, we desperately want him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They almost traded up into the first round for Evan Warrior. They tried to, because they had so much conviction that he was going to be such an important player for them. And I think that they had the same opinion on Gray Zabel, even though some people were like, he's a guard from the FCS. You're taking him 16th or whatever it was. It's like something around there. And, you could look at that as like a bad move, but then you, as we've learned, he fucking loves football. He's all about football.
football and Busch Light, man. That is exactly what I want my guard caring about.
And I think he's a great example of the football guy, sort of, even though it's a cliche, football guy is so true, because there was that behind the scenes thing where he was like telling Leonard Williams,
so good,
this guy had like a tell or something. I can't remember the exact details, but he's basically like, look, man, try do this because the guy that you're going against keeps doing this.
A rookie talking to a veteran old pro.
Leonard Williams, who is like 31 or whatever he is. He's like been in the league for longer than this guy's been an adult. And I think that's it's a good encapsulation of the type of people that they want on their team. And so again, maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much, but it seems like a really great process that they have now. And it's taken time to kind of iron that out, but you can't argue with the results. I think, on that note, I think now in retrospect, you kind of look at like the Geno Smith and the DK Metcalf thing. Like, we obviously saw them as these are stable pieces of the organization, and you're trading them away. But now when you look at it back, you're like, I don't know, Geno is kind of wired in a funny way. He's like talking shit on Twitter and stuff, and maybe a little bit too concerned about like what people think. DK Metcalf is a fucking loose cannon. There's no way around it. And they saw these guys as like, they're not the types of players. They're not the type of people we want on this team. Like, especially in leadership positions. In retrospect, now it makes a lot of sense to me. Obviously, and I can say this coming from the point of view where the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. So, there's a lot of caveats there. But now I kind of see the vision and why they made those decisions, why they were so convinced that it was the right move. When in the time, I thought it was really risky.
Yeah. And you got to get clear on what you want, clear on what you don't want. I have a rule with my clients when we're home shopping, because a lot of times, there'll be 10 homes they want to see. I tell them pick 4. We're only going to see 4 today. So that forces you to then go through and say, what can we live without? And it never ends up with the one getting away that wasn't one of those 4. What it does is it reduces the noise. It keeps those homes from blending together, trying to remember what the address of the one with the kitchen you liked, but not the yard, all of that stuff, right? And so a smaller draft board, I think, has proven itself to be so effective for exactly that reason. Last thing that I'm going to ask you before we get out of here is, when the clock finally hit zeros on the Super Bowl, because you're watching this game in the Ringer studios in LA with your co-hosts Heifetz and Craig, you're in the theater room, clock hits 000. If there was a camera on you in that moment, what would it see?
There was. Heifetz took a video. It was funny because I was like, it was sort of anticlimactic. The ending of the game was anticlimactic.
Yep.
We knew they were going to win for like 15 minutes or whatever. I just stood up and put my hands up, and I was like, "We did it!" I was like, "Thank God!" It was a mix of elation and relief. I was talking to our buddy Adam today. Actually, I was just like,
What up, Adam?
What's up, Adam? One of the biggest things that I kind of came away with is I didn't want the Seahawks to be 1-3 in the Super Bowl. For some reason, I thought that was like important to me. I don't know why. I'm like, it just feels so much better not to have gone to the Super Bowl 4 times and only won once.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's like a weird way of quantifying what I was feeling, but I was like, it felt so good to get that W. It's a legacy thing. I think it's like looking at what the Seahawks, when I'm 80 years old, I look back on the Seahawks and like the team that I followed, like how they do in the Super Bowl is kind of important, obviously. So I think that was like where the relief came from. And then obviously the elation is just like, holy shit, we won the Super Bowl.
Like what do I do with this feeling? This is what I've been chasing this whole time. What, now that I have
what do I do with my hands?
What do I do with it? Exactly. There's Paulina took a video of me as the game ended, and I'm gonna cherish this video forever. I'm just slumped down in front of the couch, just leaning back on my knees, looking up at the TV, and this look on my face. I look like I'm 8 years old. I'm not cheering. I'm not pumping my fist. I'm just sitting there with this goofy grin on my face. Just like, I don't know what to do with my hands in that situation. And it just letting it wash over me. And I wasn't thinking about anything else in that moment. The analytical part of my brain was just switched off. And
and
I'm so grateful to her for doing that, because I'm going to be able to go back and look at that video and immediately remember what that feeling is like, and like, okay, this is worth the frustration and the energy and the time that we put into it.
I think the other thing that kind of was like a strong emotion for me was sort of the realization that a lot of fan bases don't get this, and so like it's so cool and special to get to the top of the mountain as a fan of a team, and you know, the team that you follow, like you friggin' blood, sweat, and tears, even maybe not literally, but like it figuratively feels that way. And to get to have that elation of winning it all, you know, obviously it's like, don't take that for granted, I guess. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not already looking to next year. I'm like, I want to enjoy this for the next couple of months, and then we can talk about free agency or whatever. But yeah, I think just being appreciative that I got to experience that, because, you know, as Mariners fans, I think people fucking understand.
That's right.
It's like really hard to get to that point and get to the Super Bowl. And I think that's the 2-2 thing versus 1-3. To me, it's like, I don't want to look back and be like, God, they had so many opportunities and they just couldn't quite do it. Like it resonated so strongly that, like, oh my God, they were able to fucking finish this and pull it off. I can't wait for the parade is going to be fun to watch.
Well, and now we're not fans of the team that did it that one time, and 40 years from now, you know, we're talking about that one season that they won it all. You know, it's like, okay, this is a thing they do now instead of a thing that they've done. And I think also, you know, every championship has a unique story to it for its fans. And for Seahawks fans, the blessing and the curse of how things went down in 2013 and 2014 is, if you reversed the years of those two Super Bowls, we have a totally different feeling about it, right? We went from, let's be honest, the greatest feeling I'm ever going to have as a Seahawks fan, as a sports fan, was that first Super Bowl where they just beat the shit out of the greatest offense of all time. And it's like, you can't tell me nothing, right? And then 1 year, almost to the day later, everybody could tell you everything, because it was like the most
brutal loss.
Imaginable. Like a punchline loss, right? Mm-hmm. It's what Scott Norwood wide right was for 20 years. And it did so much to erase the feelings that we should have been able to hang on to from Super Bowl 48. This cleanses that. To do it against the same team, even though it's different players, different coaches, this cleanses that in a way that not only helps me appreciate this championship, but gives some emotional permission to appreciate that first Super Bowl again in a way that's been difficult because of how the next one went.
Yeah, I think it is really fun to. This is something I've been doing since the game ended. Is like, you know, comparing the 2013 team to the 2025 team now, and it's like, those are going to be two of the most special seasons ever. I think the 2014 loss did kind of, you know, sour the 2013 season a little bit.
I mean, it soured the whole locker room.
I think it's like, you're right though. Like, now that 2013 season feels more special for some reason.
Yeah.
Because they were able to like get back to the Super Bowl and win it. It is the other legacy thing that I think is exciting is, like, the Seahawks are going to be, and Craig was talking about this on our show, is the Seahawks are going to be one of the best teams of the 2000, like since 2000. Like, they're like one of the most successful franchises. I don't think people look at it that way, really, but if you look at like playoff wins, if you look at Super Bowl appearances, they've been to the Super Bowl 4 times in the 2000s. You know, they're one of the most successful franchises. Just wins. I think they're like 5th in wins.
Second most wins in the last 15 years. Yeah, any team in the NFL. Like,
it's like people look at the blue blood teams like the Steelers and the Packers, and I get that. I understand why that is, but the Seahawks have been fucking great. You know, basically this century.
It's easy to forget what a privilege it is as a fan to be upset about a 10-win season.
Totally. So yeah, just trying to enjoy this. It's still, I don't think, really fully sunk in. It's fun to talk about because I think it is making it sink in a little bit more. But yeah, Super Bowl champs. Yeah. Not bad.
Well, that was the whole reason that I wanted to have you and Mina on this show, is to give us a chance to step back from the way that we've been watching football for so long and just provide an opportunity to just talk about it. Not have to couch our opinions against being a fan of the team, not having to say, yeah, but to just appreciate what we've seen and
Right.
talk about what it means to us. So thank you so much for doing that with me today.
Of course, man. Happy to do it. Let's do it again next year.
All right. We'll be right back here. We'll be right back here next year doing the same thing. Danny
Why
Kelly
not?
guarantee. All right, brother. I appreciate you.
All right. You too, man.
Okay. That is going to do it for today. I can't tell you how much it means to me to have you guys here to celebrate and enjoy this. Like I said in the show, this is the whole point. And it's especially meaningful to be joined today by Mina and Danny. Once again, huge thank you to them. You know, we started doing the show going on 5 years ago, and two of the very first people to come on the show were Danny and Mina. And they have been a part of this experience for me literally since I started writing Cigar Thoughts almost 15 years ago. And to have them here to celebrate this Super Bowl win is really, really cool. So thank you all for sticking with us and enjoying this with us, because I know you guys are feeling just as good. So we did it. Look, as always, you can find Mike and I on social media. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jacson Bevins. That's Jacson. Remember that no K is okay when spelling my name. Mike is on both at Mike Barwin, and the show itself is at Cigar Thoughts on Twitter and at cigarthoughtsnfl.com on Blue Sky. You can catch full video episodes on our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts and find the rest of our socials at cigarthoughtsnfl.com. As I mentioned at the top, this episode is brought to you by Balvenie Premium Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of their lineup, and we are thrilled to have them on board as a sponsor of the show. One of the great things about a great Scotch is how well it plays with a good cigar. So once again, we do have our own special release of cigars that you can purchase at a terrific price as a listener of the show. The release of these Cigar Thoughts Stogies has been successful enough for us to continue offering them for the low, low price of $149. That's right, just $149 for a bundle of 10. As you know, we partnered with one of the most prestigious cigar manufacturers in the world to release these official Cigar Thoughts cigars, which you can order directly from cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Just follow the link on the show page to get these easy-to-smoke stogies rolled with 13-year aged premium Dominican tobacco leaf, or hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. We'll send you the details directly. The cigars come with a Boveda humidification pack and a Mylar storage bag to make sure they stay fresh whether you have a humidor or not. Of course, you can listen to this show on fieldgoals.com and everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you like the show, drop us a 5-star rating and leave a quick review. Thank you to all of y'all listening for your continued support of the show. We know you've only got so much time for podcasts in your life, and it is an honor to be a part of that for y'all. Please know that by sharing this show with your friends and on social media, you give us the juice to keep making this happen. We will be back soon. But in the meantime, onwards and upwards, my friends.